War pushes humans to their limits, but sometimes survival depends on nature's giants. This 1945 photo shows an elephant loading supplies into a U.S. Army C-46 aircraft during World War II in India. When machines broke down in the brutal conditions of the Burma front, these elephants became lifelines, hauling fuel, weapons, and hope through jungles where trucks couldn't go. Silent, powerful, and loyal, they carried the weight of war without ever knowing why. Looking at this image, one question lingers. In humanity's darkest hours, who showed more strength? The soldiers fighting, or the creatures that simply served? Saigon, 1968. One single frame captured the raw brutality of the Vietnam War. General Nguyen Ngoc Loan, South Vietnam's chief of police, executes a Viet Cong prisoner in broad daylight during the Tet Offensive. Photographer Eddie Adams clicked the shutter at the exact second, and the world stood still. When this image hit front pages, it ignited outrage, fueled anti-war protests, and changed public opinion forever. Yet, Adams later admitted something chilling. The photo destroyed the general's life without telling the whole story. Context vanished. What remained was a frozen moment that became a symbol of war's merciless reality. A second in time that exposed humanity's darkest side and asked a question that still haunts us today. Who was the real victim? Before he became a global icon, before the lightning-fast punches and the legendary movies, Bruce Lee was just a quiet child with a curious mind. This rare photo, taken in 1946, shows him at the age of 6, long before the world knew his name. Born in San Francisco and raised in Hong Kong, Bruce faced struggles most kids never imagine. He was a sickly child, often getting into trouble on the streets. But those challenges became the fire that forged a warrior. Every great legend starts somewhere, and for Bruce Lee, it began with discipline, relentless training, and an unbreakable spirit. From this innocent face would rise the man who changed martial arts forever. Sometimes, greatness hides behind the smallest beginnings, and this is living proof. In this remarkable photograph from 1944, we see Winston Churchill, Britain's indomitable leader, gripping a Thompson submachine gun with fierce determination. It's a striking image, not because he was on the front lines, but because it symbolizes the resolve of an entire nation during its darkest hour. Churchill, known for his speeches that galvanized millions, also understood the power of presence. Standing alongside Allied soldiers, dressed in his signature pinstripe suit and bowler hat, he embodied defiance against tyranny. This was more than a photo op. It was a statement. Britain would never surrender. Behind that iconic cigar and sharp wit was a man willing to do whatever it took to protect freedom. History remembers him as a voice of courage, but here we see a glimpse of the warrior spirit that helped turn the tide of World War II. Take a trip back to 1964, when fast food was booming and Burger King was doing everything to win America's heart. This vintage ad promised kids a free milkshake and a chance to meet none other than Bozo the Clown in person. The promotion was a big deal. Families could also win prizes like a $1,000 U.S. savings bond, bicycles, and more. Imagine the excitement. Saturday afternoon, a crowd of eager kids, free shakes in hand, and the colorful world of Bozo bringing pure joy. Ads like this capture the golden age of American fast food culture, when marketing wasn't just about food, but about creating experiences that families would never forget. Today, we see QR codes and apps, but back then, a clown and a thick shake were all it took to make memories. Simpler times, bigger smiles, and the rise of a brand that would become an icon. Step back to Naples, Italy, in 1897, when pasta wasn't just a meal, it was an art form. This incredible photo shows rows of long strands of macaroni drying under the open sky, right on the street. Before modern factories, pasta was handmade and air-dried, turning city sidewalks into what looked like a golden forest of spaghetti. Workers carefully hung each piece, ensuring the perfect texture for Italy's most iconic dish. This wasn't just food production. It was part of daily life and culture, a tradition that would shape global cuisine for centuries. Today, pasta is everywhere, ready in minutes. But in the late 19th century, it was a labor of love, crafted with patience and pride. Can you imagine walking through Naples and seeing entire streets lined with fresh pasta drying in the sun? That's how the world's love affair with Italian cuisine began. This striking photograph takes us back to 1919, in the aftermath of World War I, during one of the deadliest pandemics in human history, the Spanish flu. Here we see health workers fully covered in white gowns and masks, standing by early automobiles and motorcycles marked with SOS. Their mission? To provide emergency care and transport for the sick in a world with almost no vaccines, no antivirals, and very limited medical resources. The Spanish flu infected an estimated 500 million people and claimed over 50 million lives worldwide, overwhelming hospitals and reshaping public health systems forever. These men and women on the front lines were the unsung heroes of their time, risking their lives daily to slow a virus they barely understood. It's a chilling reminder that the concept of pandemic response is not new, and that courage in the face of uncertainty has always been essential. Step inside an American Airlines aircraft in 1933, a time when air travel was a luxury reserved for the elite. The cabin looks more like a cozy living room than the high-tech interiors we know today. Passengers sit in plush seats, reading magazines, while a stylish flight attendant adjusts the controls on what appears to be an early in-flight entertainment system, a radio. This was decades before seatback screens or Wi-Fi. In the early days of commercial aviation, flights were loud, bumpy, and often cold, but the experience was marketed as glamorous and exclusive. Only the wealthy could afford a ticket, and airlines spared no effort to make it special, complete with fine dining and personalized service. This image is a fascinating reminder of how far air travel has come, from roaring propeller engines and in-flight radios to streaming movies at 35,000 feet in the comfort of modern jets. April 9, 1948, Bogotá, Colombia descends into chaos. This photo shows a tram engulfed in flames during what became known as El Bogotazo, one of the most violent uprisings in Latin American history. The spark? The assassination of Jorge Eliezer Gaitan, a charismatic presidential candidate who promised hope to the poor. His murder ignited an explosion of rage. Within hours, the capital was on fire. Government buildings, stores, and public transport, like the tram in this image, were destroyed. Riots swept through the city, leaving thousands dead and Bogotá in ruins. But the tragedy didn't stop there. The Bogotazo marked the beginning of a dark era in Colombia known as La Violencia, a brutal civil conflict that would last over a decade. This single event changed the course of an entire nation, proving how one act can ignite decades of turmoil and bloodshed. July 1967, Jacksonville, Florida. A power line repair job turns into a fight for life. This iconic photograph, known as the Kiss of Life, captures a moment of pure heroism. Two utility workers were fixing lines when J.D. Thompson heard a scream. His partner, Randall G. Champion, had accidentally touched a live wire and was electrocuted. Champion hung limp in his safety harness, suspended high above the ground. Without hesitation, Thompson climbed to his friend, straddled the pole, and began mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, right there in midair. Photographer Rocco Morabito happened to be nearby and captured this incredible scene. Thompson kept breathing for Champion until paramedics arrived, saving his life. The image became a Pulitzer Prize winner and a lasting symbol of courage and quick thinking. This was not just a photograph, it was a real-life miracle frozen in time. This chilling photo, taken in 1912, shows members of the Ku Klux Klan standing alongside women and children during a ceremonial gathering. At first glance, it may seem like a harmless community event, but behind those robes and hoods was an organization built on terror, violence, and racial hatred. During the early 20th century, the Klan experienced a massive resurgence across the United States, presenting themselves as defenders of traditional values. They often tried to normalize their presence by involving families in public rituals like this one. However, their activities fueled discrimination and horrific acts of violence against Black Americans, immigrants, Catholics, and Jews. This image is a stark reminder of how hate can disguise itself as unity and tradition. It's a disturbing piece of history that urges us never to forget the real cost of intolerance and extremism. This striking photograph from 1905 captures the Cerveceria Moctezuma in Orizaba, Mexico, one of the most iconic breweries in Latin America. Founded in 1894, this facility became the birthplace of some of Mexico's most famous beers, including brands that would later dominate the global market. Its location in Orizaba wasn't a coincidence. The region's pristine water sources and cool climate made it ideal for brewing. At the time, the brewery symbolized industrial progress and the growing influence of European beer-making traditions in Mexico. The imposing architecture, with its clock tower and grand facade, reflected both pride and ambition during an era of rapid modernization under Porfirio Díaz's rule. More than just a factory, Cerveceria Moctezuma represented a cultural shift in Mexican society, blending tradition with innovation. Today, its legacy lives on through beers that are recognized around the world, making this image a true historical treasure. This elegant portrait from 1915 shows Queen Victoria Eugenie of Spain, a figure of grace and resilience during a time of great upheaval in Europe. Born a British princess, she married King Alfonso XIII of Spain in 1906, a union that was both celebrated and controversial. Her arrival in Spain marked a cultural shift, introducing British customs and modern influences to the Spanish court. However, her life was far from a fairy tale. She faced political instability, health challenges within the royal family, and the growing tensions that would eventually lead to the Spanish Civil War. Despite these hardships, Victoria Eugenie became known for her charitable work and efforts to improve public health, particularly in combating diseases such as tuberculosis. This photograph captures not just a queen adorned in jewels and regal attire, but a woman navigating the complexities of duty, family, and a rapidly changing world. This striking photo from around 1910 captures Pancho Villa, one of the most iconic and controversial figures of the Mexican Revolution. Born Doroteo Arango, Villa rose from bandit to revolutionary leader, commanding the feared División del Norte. His charisma and military skill made him a hero to many, but his daring cross-border raid on Columbus, New Mexico, in 1916 changed everything. That attack, which killed several Americans, shocked the United States and led President Woodrow Wilson to launch the punitive expedition. General John J. Pershing, with over 10,000 U.S. troops and the latest military technology, including airplanes, was sent deep into Mexico to capture Villa. But Villa knew the terrain too well. He vanished into the mountains, evading capture despite an almost year-long pursuit. This image reminds us of a man who defied not just a government, but an entire nation determined to hunt him down. This is a 1 peso banknote from 1917, a fascinating artifact from one of the most turbulent times in Mexico's history. At first glance, it looks simple, but the story behind it is anything but ordinary. During the Mexican Revolution, currency was more than money. It was a political weapon. With the central government in chaos, regional leaders, and even private businesses issued their own notes, like this one from Manuel Suarez in Torreon, Coahuila. Known as Bilambiques, These notes often circulated only locally, backed by promises rather than solid gold reserves. People never knew if the money in their hands would be worth anything tomorrow. Imagine buying food or paying wages with bills that could become worthless overnight. This banknote isn't just paper. It's a reminder of survival, resilience, and the uncertainty that defined Mexico during those revolutionary years. This striking image captures the early stages of one of Argentina's most iconic landmarks, the obelisk of Buenos Aires, under construction in 1936. Today, it stands proudly as a national symbol, but at the time, it was a daring and controversial project. Built in just 31 days, a feat almost impossible to imagine today, the obelisk was designed to commemorate the city's 400th anniversary. Standing 67 meters tall, its modernist style contrasted sharply with the city's traditional architecture, sparking heated debates among residents. Many saw it as a bold step into modernity, while others considered it an unnecessary extravagance during difficult economic times. Yet, over the decades, this monument has become the beating heart of Buenos Aires, hosting celebrations, protests, and historic gatherings. Looking at this photo, we witness not just construction, but the birth of a cultural icon that would define a nation's identity. This photograph, taken in 1910, captures a tense and somber scene outside a prison in Chihuahua, Mexico, a pivotal moment during the outbreak of the Mexican Revolution. Behind the iron bars, prisoners await their fate, their expressions heavy with uncertainty. Outside, a woman, likely a family member, stands quietly, her presence a silent act of love and desperation. In the foreground sits a soldier, armed and alert, embodying the volatile state of a nation on the brink of transformation. The Mexican Revolution was not just a political uprising, it was a human struggle for land, justice, and equality. Every face in this image tells a story of conflict, survival, and hope against all odds. These were times when loyalty and betrayal could mean life or death. Looking at this photograph, we are reminded of the human cost of revolution and the resilience of those caught in its storm. This image, taken in Mexico during the 1950s, transports us to a time when baking was more than a profession. It was an art of patience and precision. Inside this bustling bakery, women in crisp white uniforms work methodically at large tables, shaping dough with expert hands. Behind them, towering shelves are stacked with trays, ready for the heat of traditional ovens. These were the decades when industrialization began to influence local production, but the essence of craftsmanship remained intact. Bread was not just a staple. It was a symbol of sustenance and community, often prepared before sunrise to nourish families throughout the day. Every loaf carried the warmth of tradition, a taste that connected generations. This photograph captures more than a workplace. It reflects the cultural heartbeat of an era where skill, dedication, and human touch defined the food that brought people together.